The Sacramento Kings were right about De'Aaron Fox. A couple seasons back, when the Kings decided to trade away Tyrese Haliburton, a lot of people were up in arms about that decision. And although at the time I didn't like that decision either, you don't typically trade away a young talented point guard like Tyrese was, at the end of the day, the major reason for why they ended up making that decision was because they believed in De'Aaron Fox a ton. And when you look at De'Aaron's play ever since that deal, it's pretty clear that he's gotten significantly better. But even besides his individual statistics, when you look at how well the Kings are playing as a roster, especially this season, it's pretty clear that the Kings did actually make the right decision. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports. I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Ever since De'Aaron Fox was drafted, it was pretty apparent that the Kings had themselves a franchise point guard. Even though in his rookie season, De'Aaron wasn't necessarily putting up the greatest numbers, only averaging 11 points per game on 41% shooting from the field, 2.8 rebounds on 4.4 assists, it still was very apparent that the Kings had themselves a great player in De'Aaron. Due to how well De'Aaron was playing on the court and due to how great his NBA feel was. And you would assume a player that was looking that good in his rookie season would eventually be able to put things together as his career went on. And fortunately for the Sacramento Kings and also De'Aaron Fox, that's exactly what happened. As a season following that, he ended up having his first breakout year, averaging 17 points per game on 45% shooting from the field, 3.8 rebounds on 7.3 assists. Now after that season, a lot of people who had high expectations for De'Aaron were basically vindicated. At that point, not only was De'Aaron looking very good on the court, but when you looked at his statistics, it was actually backing up the great play that he was showing. De'Aaron was doing a lot of the same things that he was doing at college, but probably even at a higher level. He was doing a great job at driving all the way to the basket. That was certainly the best ability of his game, but he also had a great ability from that mid-range area, and even though he wasn't necessarily the best from that three-point range, it was something he was working on. But besides his individual scoring ability, really what made him such a great young point guard was due to the fact that he was a great passer and playmaker. As a point guard, you need to be able to run the NBA offense and get all your teammates involved, because not only is that going to help out you individually, but of course that's going to help out your teammates and help your team win. So the fact that De'Aaron was showing that at such a high level early on was obviously something to get very excited about. And after that 2018 season, De'Aaron Fox never looked back, as each and every season after that he improved his game. But unfortunately for De'Aaron, although people were very excited about his game early on, due to the fact that the Kings weren't all that successful as a team, his perceived value started to go down after a few years. And once the Kings drafted Tyrese Haliburton and people saw how good he was, a lot of people were starting to turn on De'Aaron and thought the Kings should probably move on from him. Because it was pretty clear that both De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton had the potential to be franchise point guards, and you can't really have two of those guys on your roster, so it was pretty clear that the Kings would eventually need to move on from one or the other. But at the time, everybody, actually including myself, thought De'Aaron Fox should have been the guy, but the Kings surprisingly decided to move on from Tyrese Haliburton instead. Now, although it was very shocking that the Kings decided to do that at the time, when you look back at it at this point, I actually do think the Kings made the right decision. And I think this for a couple different reasons, but the first and main reason has to be how well the Kings have been playing this year. When you look at the Kings' record this season, they have a 45-29 record, making them the third best team in the Western Conference. And that's something literally nobody saw coming into the season. Over the last 20 or so seasons, the Kings have always been known as one of the worst teams in the NBA. They consistently missed the playoffs, and not only were they missing the playoffs, they weren't even close. So the fact that this season the Kings completely turned things around and are gonna make the playoffs for the first time in who knows how long, and are gonna make the playoffs for the first time in 20 or so seasons is crazy enough, but also when you consider how good they actually are, actually the third seed and could actually make noise in the playoffs, is obviously something that's a significant upgrade from what they were in the past. And obviously a lot of different players have stepped up on this Kings roster, but when you look at the play of De'Aaron Fox individually, he's obviously a main reason for why they've been playing so well. On the season, De'Aaron's averaging 25 points per game on 51% shooting from the field, 4.2 rebounds on 6.1 assists. Now, when you look at those numbers, obviously they're spectacular, but when you watch De'Aaron play out there, it's also very apparent that he actually might be even better than those numbers would suggest. De'Aaron is doing a great job at running crisp offensive sets and always getting his teammates easy looks. When you talk about the pick and roll or pick and pop between De'Aaron and Domantas Sabonis, that has been a very deadly combination for Sacramento. Because either De'Aaron Fox gets an easy look for himself, he gets an easy look for Sabonis, or he even gets easy looks for other guys out there in the corner for wide open 3-point jump shots or just in general. So when you look at the overall play that Sacramento is showing this year, it is very difficult to argue that the Kings didn't make the right decision by moving on from Tyrese Haliburton. But the next reason for why I think the Kings made the right decision is they have De'Aaron Fox locked up for the long term. They already have De'Aaron on a long-term contract, so they don't necessarily need to worry about him leaving, and they can focus a lot more on the team they currently have and different ways they can improve upon that. So I actually think having your main guy under contract for the long-term future takes a lot of stress and pressure off the front office, and they could actually end up making better decisions than they otherwise would have if their younger player wasn't under long-term contract yet. Now, I definitely think some of you can make the argument that if the Kings traded away De'Aaron Fox instead of Tyrese Haliburton, they could be at a similar point right now. Because Tyrese Haliburton is also playing at a very high level with the Indiana Pacers. But in my opinion, I still think De'Aaron was the right person to keep on this Kings roster specifically, just due to the fact that when you look at the Pacers, they're at a very different point than where the Kings are right now. So even though the Pacers are playing decently well and Tyrese Haliburton is playing very, very well individually, they're just at a different point, and it's hard to compare apples to apples between these two teams. So of course, yeah, there is the possibility that if the Kings moved on from De'Aaron Fox, they could be at a very similar point where the Kings are now, but the Kings probably wouldn't get nearly as much in return for De'Aaron than they did for Tyrese, and you don't necessarily know if Tyrese would be playing at a similar level to what De'Aaron's playing at this point at least. So I definitely think you could make the argument, but at the same time, there are a lot of question marks involved with that. But at this point, I kind of feel like that argument isn't all that relevant, because when you look at the Kings currently, they're playing very, very well. So in my opinion, solely based on that fact, the Kings made the right decision. And the great thing about this Kings roster is most of their guys are still very young, and you would expect them to improve as the years do progress, especially a guy in De'Aaron Fox who's only been getting better over the years. So I'm extremely excited to see what the Kings can do in the playoffs this year. This is literally going to be the first time since I become an NBA fan that the Kings are going to be in the playoffs, so of course it is going to be very interesting to see. But also I'm excited about their long-term future as well. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening going forward long-term. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Kings actually made the right decision by holding on to De'Aaron Fox, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.